Welcome to the Snacks Cast, where we sit down with the teams behind the teams and find out what it takes to grow the game. On today's show, I have Christina Gein, the operations manager of Rugby NorCal. We talk a little bit about her experiences on running a youth rugby organization on a day-to-day basis, as well as her time overseas working in Africa and living in New Zealand. I met Christina through Rugby NorCal when I was with Minnesota Youth Rugby, and then we subsequently worked two events together this year, Rugby World Cup Sevens and the Women's Sevens in Glendale, Colorado. After learning a little bit more about her, I thought she'd be a great guest to come on the show and give some more perspective on what it's like to work in rugby on a day-to-day basis and maybe some challenges that she saw while she was overseas. I hope you enjoy the show. If you'd like to follow the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'd also appreciate any reviews you'd like to leave. If you'd like to follow the show on Instagram or Facebook, you can find us at SnacksCast. Or if you want to check out some of the writings or have another place where we catalog the episodes, you can follow us at www.snackscast.com. Today I'm on the show with Christina Gein, a friend of mine from NorCal. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful morning here. How are you, Snacks?
I'm good. Where are you currently located at right now?
I am in Sacramento, California.
Okay. And the move to Sacramento, is that with your move with the Rugby NorCal offices?
Oh, yeah. So our office is previously located in Dixon. I've been living in Sacramento for, since I started working for Rugby NorCal. So we hired a new executive director a couple months ago, and He also lives in Sacramento. And so we just decided it made sense that our office should be here too. So here we are.
Oh, nice. So What is your role with Rugby NorCal?
So I'm the operations manager for Rugby NorCal. So I have my colleague Lou Stanfill, who I know you've worked with. He was former Eagle. So he was just recently hired, and so he and I run and operate the rugby league. So Rugby NorCal is the second largest youth state rugby organization in the United States. And so, essentially, Lou and I operate and govern and run the league.
Okay. So when you say you're the second largest state-based rugby organization, or SRO or SBRO for some folks out there, in terms of numbers, what does that look like?
So at one point in the game, we were over 5,000, roughly like 5,300. But in the last year, we had just below that, more like 4,800. Okay. So still close to 5,000 though.
Oh, no, those are amazing numbers. And sort of give me an idea of how many teams is that, or clubs?
So we have, it varies from year to year based on, clubs. There's always clubs who end up folding or moving on. But then there's new clubs that pop up, but we hover between 60 and 65 clubs, and then we have clubs that are maybe they only have one team, one girls high school team or one boys middle school team or something like that. But most of our clubs have multiple teams. So we have high school clubs that are boys and girls high school, varsity and JV, and then we have clubs that are youth clubs that have U10s, U8s, U12s, middle school, and then we have clubs that have all of it: U10s, U12s, lights and opens. And so our smallest club might have 30 people, and then our largest club has like 400 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are really good numbers.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Take me through kind of like what does the day in the life of Christina Gein at Rugby NorCal look like? What are some things you sort of deal with?
So I wear a lot of hats. Like I said, it's just me and Lou, and so we, run and operate everything. We do have a board of directors, and so they have committees that they run. So there's, our VP of competitions helps create schedules. Our VP of youth creates schedules for the youth. We have a president and a vice president who help with various operations. But, so there's like the basic things that we do to operate and run the league, the basic stuff that we have to do just to keep the league running, like processing registrations, creating schedules, managing our injury tracking system, making sure that all of our teams have athletic trainers and referees, and organizing and running tournaments, and organizing coach and referee certification courses, stuff like that. But then Lou and I try to make time to step back and look at how our league is operating and figure out ways that we can run programs more smoothly, or
Mhm.
develop programs to help generate growth and sustainability, organize fundraising initiatives, generate partnerships so that we can provide more member benefits, stuff like that. So, there's the stuff that we have to do to operate the league, to keep the league running, and then there's the stuff that we try to do to continue growing our league and make it better and continue professionalizing rugby in the eyes of the public.
The roles of SRO staff are very underrated. There's only two of you, and that is quite a bit of stuff to cover. And it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. Well, it's a very good to note that you're the second largest SRO in the United States, and you and Lou are covering all of that. That's an awesome job, and I'm glad that you say you had a really good working relationship with the committees and your board
Mm,
of directors, because the support from them is crucial, right,
right.
to getting
No,
those things done.
absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, because like you noted, there's just two of us and we have to do everything. And so
yeah.
we rely a lot on the volunteer time of people who are willing to jump in. And that's something that Lou and I have been working on, is trying to organize more committees for other things. We're trying to revamp our all-star program and provide a better
Hmm.
program for our players. And
Yeah,
appointing somebody else as the head of that committee instead of Lou heading that committee is crucial, because that's one more thing that he can take off his plate so that he can work on making sure the other things he needs to do can get done to maximum capacity. So
yeah,
and we have some incredible people in NorCal who just are so bright and have so much experience in the game, and are really like more than qualified to run some of these other committees and stuff. So it's just a matter of making sure that everyone's on the same page and has the same vision, and are all working together in the same direction. And then also making sure that we are providing, resources to make it easier for our volunteers, and making sure that they know that they are greatly appreciated. So,
right. Yeah,
yeah.
volunteers are definitely priority one in any organization,
Mm,
right? I
mhm.
mean, they make the world go round, from coaches to referees to administrators, managers. So, I mean, it's
Yep.
good that there's a focus on the volunteers and making sure that they're appreciated. How do you, one of the things, if I can sort of maybe play off a little of my experience and
Mhm.
something that I found, um, how, what is Rugby NorCal doing to help, or not help, but maybe make sure that the volunteers understand what the minimum requirements are for them to coach or referee? Like, do you have a process of that?
Yeah, so that's something that when I came on, that was like actually a massive project that I worked on, was to make sure that everybody knows what those minimum requirements are to volunteer at a club, to
Mhm.
whether it's a coach or referee or even a team mom or administrator, because there's the basic things that you need, like a certification, background check, making sure you're registered as a member of USA Rugby,
Yeah,
but then it's also the other part of it, because you know every club runs their own volunteers within their club, and
right.
we can provide best practices to those clubs. And so that's something that we've been working on as well, is trying to put together resources for best practices, and sharing those with all of our clubs, especially our new clubs, so
Hmm.
that when they get started, they can get started as strong as they can with the volunteer help and everyone on the same page. And so, but I mean, to some extent, it's really up to those clubs as to what minimums they want to set. So we have our minimums that we set as Rugby
Right.
NorCal, but then other clubs can also say, we require you to fill out this form or sign this code of conduct or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to answer that question. Probably the most eloquent way to answer that question I've heard so far.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, obviously, we met in the SRO conference world, and we have a wide range of colleagues out there in the community, and that was well spoken, my
Oh, well,
friend.
thank
Like,
you very much.
that was awesome.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And
Um, one of the other conversations that I've had with you at times, at we've worked a couple of events together now, and we'll get into what those were later in our conversation, but was coach development, right? And we
Mm,
both felt that was something that was very important to
yeah,
growing the game.
yeah.
Are there any, since we've chatted before, have any new plans or new strategies come up like in Rugby NorCal that you're excited about, or maybe something
Yeah.
you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, well, so Lou, funny enough, was just talking about that with me yesterday. So, as I mentioned before, we have so many amazing people in Northern California. We're kind of lucky because a lot of people who immigrate from other rugby countries a lot of times move to California.
Yeah.
So we get to use them. And so one of those incredible people is Oreni Ai, who's
Mm,
a former All Black, and he coaches at the Rhino Rugby Academy here in Sacramento. And so he's an incredible resource, just a wonderful person, incredibly knowledgeable and skilled, obviously. And just a humble person who has a heart for growing the game and investing in kids. And so Lou was just talking with Rennie the other day about working with him to so as you know, when a coach gets certified, they have to do their minimum level 100 certification, and then
correct.
every contact team has to have at least one coach with the level 200 certification. But
Yes.
those certifications are rather generic, and in that it covers the basics of rugby, which is important, but the way you would coach a high school team is very different than the way you would coach a U12 team or a U10 team. And
Correct.
so there's a lot of that stuff that we want to provide for our coaches so that they can be better coaches at whatever age groups that they're working with. And so Lou's been talking to Oreni about hosting some after you get your coaching certification with USA Rugby, hosting a Rugby NorCal coaching course that is optional. You don't have to do it, but providing it as an option for coaches who want to continue developing and maybe learning more and having more resources. And so having one of those in the Bay Area, the Sacramento area, as well as down in the Fresno area.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oreni's, I've had the pleasure of meeting Oreni.
Mm.
He came and gave the jersey presentation to the All Black Sevens development team at the
Oh, did
Silicon Valley
he?
Sevens.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so awesome.
yeah. So I
Very
think
cool.
I think that's really cool that you're leveraging his experience, and
Yeah.
that's really cool to see that Lou and yourself and Rugby NorCal are focusing on that.
Mm-hmm.
The level 200, it's funny you talk about how it's sort of generic, right?
Mm.
um One of the things I tried and was I got my 200 like everybody does, and I tried the whole part whole. And
Right.
then when I went over, like, and you kind of like lose that for a while. If you have you
Mm-hmm.
experienced that with coaches where you're like, it's level
Yes.
200. Well, when I
Yep.
went over with the premiership, the
Mm-hmm.
first session we did was with the Harlequins,
Okay.
and we had high school kids that were with us, right? The 30 athletes. And
Mm-hmm.
they immediately jumped into level 200, whole part whole,
Oh, wow.
asking questions. Yeah, like,
Mm.
and the coaches on the tour were like, "Whoa." And they were like, "Yeah, don't you guys do this?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, we did learn it, right?" And so it caused the
Right.
14 of us went back and redid, like, not redid, but revisited our information from level 200.
Right.
So
Right. Nice.
it's good that you guys focus on that, and then you go from there to I guess, the strategies and tactics and skills. So that's pretty
Right,
cool.
right. Well, and it's, I think what a lot of coaches don't understand is, like, I mean, the whole part whole or the part whole, which you learn
Yeah,
in level 200, the coaching process is basically what that goes over, right?
yeah,
Is obviously really important, but I think what coaches then, don't understand is like, okay, so I get the whole concept of whole part whole or part whole, and
yeah,
and asking the questions and letting the kids try to find the answers, but what specifically should we be asking? What skills should we be starting with? Where do we start? And how do we
yeah.
go from there? And what drills should we use? And things like that. And so what kind of skills should you be focusing on what age groups, and so that's kind of the stuff that we want to provide in our next level coaching courses.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's When do you think those will start rolling out?
So we're aiming at, getting our first ones going sometime in the spring. So
Okay.
obviously most of our games are on Saturdays, and so we'll offer coaching courses on Sundays. But I think that's something that we want to be offering. We want to offer it when coaches are available for it. And so another
Yeah.
thing that we do a lot is we send out surveys to try to all of our members to try to get a better idea of like, okay, well, what's the best time of year for you to attend a coaching course? How far would you travel? How much would you pay? Things like that, so
Yeah.
that we can provide the best service to them. So yeah, I mean the fall seems to be the best time, the fall/winter before the season for most coaches, but at the
Right.
same time that is just passed. So
Yeah.
so now we're looking at utilizing over the spring people who are interested, coming on a Sunday for Sunday course.
That it's interesting that you mentioned the fall just passed and we're sort of coming into our new cycle, right, for
Mm.
Rugby NorCal. How how do you prioritize things at Rugby NorCal? Like what gets attention? I mean, obviously running the leagues and scheduling and all that is very important, but
Mm.
sort of like have you developed a timeline? Did you develop a timeline or like a Gantt chart to say like, we're going to focus on this here or that there? Like how does
Yeah,
that look for you?
definitely. Yeah, prioritizing and planning ahead is super important, especially when there's so much to do. And so um, we have a 12-month calendar
Hmm.
and kind of write down in the calendar the major things every year that we need to do, and then like deadlines that we need to get them done by. But also, like, I like to write down starting dates as well. Like, so, like, okay, well, I need to have all of our club information forms processed by the second week of December. I don't just write down like deadline is December 14th. I write down begin working on this November 1st, or
Right.
whatever that is. Um, so you know priorities are, I mean, number one, making sure that safety is the number one priority always. And so throughout
Right.
the season, I mentioned earlier that we have an injury tracking system. We call it our player welfare program. So anything having to do with that comes number one. We handle those things first because our players' safety and health is number one.
Yeah.
But other priorities are making sure that if we do have changes, making sure that our policies and procedures are in line with what we're trying to achieve, and then making sure that all of our membership knows what those changes are. So if we do make policy changes, getting that out to them. And like I said, you mentioned schedules are important and stuff like that, but luckily, like I mentioned earlier, we have a VP of competitions who handles all of our boys high school schedules. We have a VP of youth, and we have a girls commissioner, and so they handle all the schedules. So really, other important stuff, I don't necessarily have to do a whole lot of legwork on, because we have people who are amazing and who handle that.
Mhm.
So yeah.
That's great. Okay. Well,
Mhm.
that's really good insight. Um, is there anything else about Rugby NorCal that you may want to like make people aware of, or something you think is cool you've got coming up before we sort of transition into some other stuff that we want to talk about?
Um, yeah, well, I mean, I think, with this new change in leadership, Lou has been amazing, and he's really our driving force for growth. And so, I'm really excited to see what happens over the next couple of years. Beforehand, I think, Rugby NorCal was kind of, a ship in the harbor, and we were, there's the hole in the boat, and you're throwing the water out of the boat so it doesn't sink, but then you
Mm.
and don't end up going anywhere. And so Lou and I have been really working on trying to prioritize our time so that we're not only doing things to keep the league afloat, but we're also doing things to continue growing it and making it better. And so, as I mentioned, offering more coaching development opportunities. I've been working on creating an entire referee development system here in NorCal, so we can recruit and grow more referees, which will hopefully make the game better. We are working on organizing a Rugby NorCal Summit, which is similar to the NDS, but for our region. And we've also been working on organizing some major fundraising efforts, because hopefully, if we can bring in more money, we can hire a third person, and then we can delegate work more and take on more tasks and just do things to keep growing the game. So yeah, there's a lot going on here, and yeah, I'm excited for what's coming up next.
Ah, all exciting, great stuff. And it's really cool to chat with. Obviously you're one of my colleagues in
Mm.
the rugby development world, and to just hear everyone's excitement, yours in particular, is really like inspiring, and sort of
Oh,
like
thanks.
it pushes you to do more, right? Like
Mm.
I feel like I'm not on an island anymore. Like I
Aw.
know that I have you and Lou out in Rugby NorCal. I've got Pat Maroney out in Jersey, and it's great that we get to connect on that stuff. And if I can take 1 second to gush about Lou Stanfield,
Go
I'm
for
sure
it.
you hear this a lot, but him and Kramer are amazing. I
Mhm.
have the most amazing photo of Lou in a dunk tank if you want
Yes, I absolutely want that.
it.
I'm gonna
Yes.
frame it and I'm gonna put it on his desk.
There might be the Statue of Liberty involved.
What? Okay, I need
Yeah,
to see this photo. Please
I
send it.
will. I will send it to you. I
Perfect.
actually, Lou was very instrumental in helping run and get volunteers for the 2014 Club Sevens Championships that was in Seattle when he was up there,
Nice.
and that's where him and I first connected. And I mean, he was running volunteers and doing all this other stuff. And I met Kramer, his now wife, and
Mm.
they were just like so amazing from an event standpoint to work with. Well, then Lou jumps in this dunk tank
Nice.
and is just encouraging people to throw softballs at him. And
Yeah.
I'd never seen so many Eagles line up to try to take somebody down. It was amazing.
Oh no, that's awesome. That sounds like Lou. I'm not surprised one bit.
I will definitely send you that picture. Lou, if you listen to this, sorry. I'm sorry I kept that around. It's just a memento.
You have to.
Um, yeah. Okay. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Yep.
Um, there have been a couple events we've worked together this year that were pretty
Yeah.
cool. You want to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about those experiences? What were some of
Absolutely.
those things?
Yeah, so Rugby World Cup sevens and then the HSBC Women's Sevens over in Denver, and those were just some of, if not the like most incredible experiences of my entire life. Um, I love
What'd you,
people,
what'd you
and
do there?
yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that would be helpful. I was a liaison, and so yeah, so I liaisoned at the Rugby World Cup sevens for the Uganda men's team, and at the women's sevens for the women's Fijian team. And yeah, liaisoning is just, the most amazing thing that you can do. I like it's obviously, I mean, you've done it forever and it's a
Yeah.
lot of super hard work, but it is like the most rewarding work ever. And it doesn't even, I mean, at least for me anyway, it doesn't feel like hard work because I enjoy it so much.
Yeah.
But the World Cup sevens was particularly special for me because I got to liaison for a team who, are from a country that is very dear to my heart. We'll get into this later in the podcast, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
I lived in Uganda for a while and I worked to grow rugby there. And there was an individual on that team who I coached and trained as a coach, and his high school team that he coached actually went to the national tournament in Uganda. And but very humble young man who comes from a small village outside of Gulu, and like to see him work so hard and to make a World Cup team. It just, seeing him get off that plane at the airport and getting to greet him after not seeing, him and the other players for 2 years and get to see him again at a World Cup was just like the most like awe-inspiring moment ever. Just so proud to see how hard these players have worked and how far they've come, and then to get to be their liaison at the World Cup and walk through every minute of their experience there with them and welcome them into my country, into my backyard in San Francisco, and show them around was just the best thing ever. So yeah.
What's his name?
His name is Byron Morgan Okeriot.
Okay. Well, that if that was not a a recruiting tool to find liaison officers in the future, I don't know what is. The Rugby World Cup sevens was very special, and
Oh
and
yeah.
to be honest, there was so much going on that I'm really glad I got to hear this part of it now, because I
Oh
didn't get to experience. I didn't hear that from you in San Francisco, but man, that's awesome.
yeah.
And I don't know. Did I sit on my keys? Why are my eyes like watering? um, no, like it was there. You talked about how special that was.
Mm.
anything else throughout that week that like you really hit home for you or stood out for you?
Um, I mean, there's so many things that stood out. I mean, I have story after story after story, and it just, it was so great getting to work with a team that, having lived there, I know a little bit of their culture and speak a little bit of their language. And, most of the boys are from the central Uganda, which speaks a different language from where I lived. But, getting to interact with them and just seeing like the humility that all of these players have, regardless of how far they've come and where they're at, was just amazing. And, I haven't met, when I lived there, I didn't know all of those players. I met some of them through, the men's team where I worked playing the other teams in the league.
Right.
But just getting to develop more relationships with all of them, and so quickly and so deeply. And they told me, at one point, like halfway through the week, we're like, Christina, we like you, can you liaison at our other events? And I wish I could be your liaison at every event around the world. But yeah, no, it just, I miss them so much. And you've talked about liaison withdrawals, and that is no joke. Seriously, no joke. You do something like that and then it's over and you go back into normal life, and it's like, what am I doing with my life? Like this, like, and I can't even say I have a normal life, because I'm an operations manager for an amazing rugby league, which is a pretty rare job in general. And I coach, and, I do all sorts of other cool things, but, it's still in comparison to liaisoning. It's like, no, I want to go back. So just, even with the women's Fijian team, I will admit I cried on the bus when I was hugging them all goodbye, because those women are, if there's anyone more humble than Ugandans, it's Fijians. And just the most wonderful people you will ever meet in your entire life. And when you liaison, you like give a little piece of your heart to them, and they take it with them when they leave. And and then the problem is, if you liaison at another event, it's like, which one do I liaison for? Because I can only work with one team, and but you make friends with all the teams, and it's so it's a good problem to have.
Yes, and that is, I could speak for days on obviously the things that I've experienced, but like that feeling of like leave a little piece of you, and then like when they're leaving, whoa, like my boys, I say about 2 words, they give us an opportunity to speak, and it's just like, yeah, thanks, boys. And I think my team's quite macho sometimes. Well, not macho, but they're
stoic.
A male, they're stoic, right? Very humble, and I think they don't really quite get that emotional connection sometimes. But I got to see a couple of my guys at the rugby weekend, and it was, I was working for USA Rugby, and they were playing for the Maori, and it was really, they were kind of like, hey, what are you doing over there? Like, why aren't you over here? Kind of thing. And it's
right.
And I get that feeling wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Denver Sevens for a minute, right? And you mentioned how special that was, and how humble the Fijiana players were. What was it like for you coming into that? Did like maybe talk a little bit about that week a little bit more, because that's something that's an event in the US that we're going to host, for at least another year or 2 years. Like, talk about that a little bit if you can, or if you got some stories. Like, I'd love to hear more about your experience there.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful experience. Getting to liaison for Fiji. I lived in New Zealand for a year, and so I'm familiar a little bit with Islander culture, but I don't, or didn't at the time. Now I can speak a little bit, but I didn't speak any Fijian. I didn't really know what I was getting into. I'm familiar with, obviously living in and working with the Ugandan team. I know how the timeline that they run on is different from the timeline that we run on in the United States. And so, like, kind of anticipating some of that. And so I wouldn't say I was nervous. I guess I didn't really know what to expect, but I still felt prepared. I mean, working at the World Cup was, like the epitome of events. And so that was like completely crazy. And so I was expecting that at this, but this event actually ran extremely smoothly, and it was like, oh wow, this is easy compared to the World Cup, which was great because then I could actually just spend more time hanging out with my players and relaxing with my team and not having to worry and stress about as much stuff. But no, they came and they just welcomed me and Jason, who was my liaison partner, who, that by the way, that was his first time liaisoning, and he was a freaking rock star of a liaison partner. And I hope that he continues doing it because he's like a natural at it. But they just welcomed Jason and I in as like part of their family, and they just they just accept you. Like there's no questions asked. You're just one of them now, and they take you around everywhere they go, and they just deck you out in Fijian rugby gear, and just all weekend is Tasso Viti Tasso, go Fiji go, and just the singing. Those girls have voices of freaking angels, and I recorded a couple times when they were singing, and I still listen to it because it's just so moving and it's so beautiful. And I just you really get to feel like a part of their family, and they're so grateful for everything, and like I said, so humble and just so willing to give when it's like, no, I'm your liaison, like I'm here to serve you, not the other way around. And so but they're just such wonderful girls, and there was one moment in particular that it was super fun. And so we're driving around in the van, and they I give them my auxiliary cord, and they listen to whatever music they want, and which is mostly pretty chill Islander music. And so then at one point I was like, okay, well let me try something out. And so I plugged my phone in instead, and I played my music, and they liked what I was playing. And I started out with some Uptown Funk, and just to get us moving. And
a little Bruno Mars, never hurt nobody.
I love it. And so then they're like, oh, let's see what else you have. And they take my phone, and they're like, do you have any Taylor Swift? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I do. And they so we roll up to our next practice session, and there's like Team China and another team is like on the field already, and we're like rolling up, like blasting Taylor Swift, and all the girls are like singing at the top of their lungs, and everyone is like, is that Fiji in there? Like, who would have guessed? But it is, and it's just so cool knowing that, like, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what culture you grow up in, everybody loves Taylor Swift. So that is a universal thing, apparently.
I can attest, Taylor Swift has been at every event I've ever worked.
Yeah, yes.
Every single one.
There we go. Solid evidence. You heard it here on Snackscast.
Yes. Yeah. T Swift, right after my heart, girl. Love me some T Swifty. Okay. God, like, it's hard not to sit here and sort of think about the time we spent at World Cup and Denver and sort of my experiences. And like, I'm just so like proud maybe that, damn, in a row I cried. No, like, I'm just proud that like you had such a good experience. And I tell people all the time, like, dude, this is amazing. Like, you're passing, like, it's well worth a week of your time to do this. And to hear that it was worth 2 weeks of your time, I'm over the moon, dude. And thank you for putting in effort like nobody would believe. You're right. It's a hard work, and you guys killed it.
Oh,
it was awesome.
Thank you, Snacks. And in all honesty, like, thank you, because you're the one, you're the one who, you make it easy for us. Like, you do, like, we think our job is hard. Like, your job, I know your job is even harder. And you organizing and coordinating all of us insane liaisons, and like, you're like, we're the mama bird for our team, but you're the mama bird of all the mama birds for all the teams. And so that's a hard job. But you make our jobs easy, and you put us in a position to succeed. And for anyone else out there who's considering liaisoning, like, don't even question it. Just do it, because it is an experience like literally nothing else in life can equate to that or substitute that. Like, it's something you will never experience anywhere else in life. It's truly unique, and it's not something that anyone would ever want to trade. I mean, if you liaison and you don't like it, then something wrong happened, because that's not how it's supposed to be.
Man, a little choked up, but
sorry, bro.
There's some. No, it's okay. It's okay, bro. It's all right. I'm good.
Sweet.
You mentioned your time in Uganda right before, and there's a couple things that we got to talk about in the pre-show that just absolutely blew me away. Can you talk a little bit about maybe your initial experience in Uganda, and maybe like, I believe it's Gainline Africa was the organization you were working for?
Yeah. hmm
And then maybe we can talk, like, lead that into some of the other stuff that you talked to me about, because I think people would love to hear those things.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to summarize it as best I can. I mean,
That's all right.
you could almost do a whole nother podcast on my experiences in Uganda because that was crazy.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah, so I guess I'll kind of explain how I got there to begin with.
Yeah.
I just quick background on me, grew up, playing every sport I possibly could. I've always loved sports. And the reason that I love sports so much, the thing that I love so much about sport is that it's so universal, and it's an incredibly powerful tool that if you wield it properly, you can incite social change, you can instill positive values, you can bridge differences and unite people and inspire and motivate and so much more. And so I always knew I wanted to work in sports. So when I went to college, I majored in sport management, and I graduated with my degree from the University of the Pacific, which is where I discovered rugby and fell in love with rugby. And so after I graduated, I moved to New Zealand, and I lived and I coached and worked there for a year. And after a year of running around with the Kiwis and the Hobbits, I, decided I wanted to actually put my degree and my skills and my experience to good use. And I really wanted to volunteer for a sport development program. And so sport development programs are basically programs that use sport to address a problem.
Yeah.
And or to overcome something. And right. And so I scoured the world, and I found this organization called Gainline Africa. And what it is it started by a group of Canadians who who were already living in Gulu. Gulu is in northern Uganda, and the local men's club team wanted to get rugby in their high schools, but they didn't really quite know how to do it. And so they asked some of their Canadian friends, and then Gainline Africa was born. So it started because it started so that it could help get rugby into the high schools in Gulu,
Okay.
but it really was so much more than that. And so I don't know how familiar you are with the history of Uganda, but there was a 21-year civil war that went on, and the worst of it happened in Gulu in northern Uganda. And so what happens when a war like that goes on for so long is that the kids who grow up during wartime, they never get the opportunity to develop normal social and emotional skills that kids who grow up in peaceful areas do. So when the war is over, it's much more difficult for them to function in society. And so what Gainland Africa did was they used rugby as a tool to empower youth and to build young leaders and teach them good character. And so one of the things that I did while I was there was I conducted a bunch of interviews with players who had been a part of the rugby programs for 2 or 3 years. And it was just so incredibly amazing to see how rugby had completely changed these kids' lives. And every single kid that I talked to had told me that before they started playing rugby, they had no friends. They weren't doing well in school. They didn't know how to talk to their teachers or other authority figures. They were angry and depressed most of the time. And they just, generally speaking, didn't seem to have much of a sense of hope. And then through rugby, after playing rugby for a while, through playing rugby, they learned so many things, and they had a healthy outlet for their emotions, and they learned how to manage conflict properly, and they learned the importance of discipline and integrity and respect, and the core values of rugby that we instill in our coaches, that our coaches instill in the players. And they gained significant confidence, and after playing rugby for a while, they began to do much better in school. They made a bunch of friends. They grew into young leaders and learned how to develop healthy relationships with their teachers and their peers. And kids who thought they would never be able to travel outside of their villages or their slums all of a sudden get to travel over Uganda playing a sport that they love, and some of them even traveling even beyond Uganda. And so it just was incredible to see how rugby, which just seems so simple, that like how can a sport do all that, but it can't. And I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about sport, because I truly believe that sport is important for every kid to get to experience. And not just the competitiveness of it, but just the life skills that you get through playing sports. And
Yeah.
I think, what I love so much about rugby is that, the core values of rugby: passion, integrity, solidarity, respect, and discipline. Like, I think rugby does a better job than any other sport organization I've ever seen at instilling those values in every person involved at every level of the game all over the world. They're very consistent with that. And so, so, the work that I did there, it was incredible to see how rugby had changed these kids' lives. And um, so Gainline Africa, really it grew programs in Gulu and in Kitgum. And but what was great about it was it wasn't, like Westerners doing all the teaching and the coaching. So what happens was, we would come and we would take the players from the local men's club, and we would level 200 certify them, and we would teach them how to be coaches. And then they would go to the high schools and they would coach the high school teams. And so these kids, it's not like they're learning and looking up from a white person from the West and being like, oh,
Right.
well, they're a coach because they're, from a Western country, or because they're richer than me, or whatever. It's like, no, they're learning and they're being mentored by people from the same places where they grew up. And then that, they see the position they're in and are like, oh, well, I can do that too. And so, and then that's just the whole part of instilling hope in these kids. And so then those kids, they graduate high school and then they play for the men's team, and then they become the new coaches. And it's sort of the cyclical cycle that happens. And it's just really incredible to work with the people. And, we complain here about having fields that suck, or,
Yeah.
our goalposts are crooked or whatever. And like, I'm telling you, over there, you have to chase the cows and your rollie is off the fields. And you're lucky if it's dry season, there will not be grass. Like, the grass will be hard and the ground will be hard. And, but people, these kids will travel so far to play, and most of them don't even have boots. And,
Wow.
And they play on hard ground, and they get bamboo to make goalposts, and then somebody drives up with like mattresses, and they like bungee cord the mattresses around the goalposts for post pads. And just the creative things. I was working at or coaching game at a high school, and the kids were setting up the field beforehand, and they would take the ashes from the kitchen at the school, and they would use that to line the fields. So very creative young kids. And I'm telling you, the talent that they have is immense. And so, like, if you want to invest in rugby, invest in Africa, because those kids, they have a passion and they have a heart for it, and they have some serious skill over there. And if you just look at them and give them an opportunity, they will seize that opportunity, and they'll go far and above and beyond expectations.
I'm blown away. Every time I was about to have like a question, like
Sorry.
you smashed it.
Okay.
Like, bravo.
Thanks.
We have a saying in the rugby events world. It's called "Rugby will happen."
Yes.
And I think your Ugandan experience is the epitome of rugby will happen. Like,
absolutely is.
that I like. Wow. Like, that is some of the coolest stuff. Like, people just want to play, and they've created these things to make fields, to make the lines. Like how could you not want to get behind something like that? That's incredible. And I was blown away in the pre-show. Like, I'm just sitting here at my desk, just like, whoa, and it's crazy, because we're about to come in and sort of segue that into a new organization that you're representing, right?
Yeah.
Rugby Tackling Life, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that, and I'm gonna maybe grab some tissues, or like start a GoFundMe page. Like, girl, you are killing it, and I don't want this show to end. Like every time you talk, something else amazing comes out. Like just go, girl. I'm gonna let you have it.
Yeah, so rugby tackling life is, so this is sort of another project that I'm working on in whatever free time that somehow magically I have. And it's so it's this organization that got started by this woman named Koyo Helen, who's a Ugandan, grew up in Jinja. Jinja is a beautiful place. Fun fact, it's the source of the Nile. And so there's her, so Koyo, and then there's Kate and Anna, who Kate is an American and Anna is from, or An is from Germany. And then there's a couple other people in Uganda, Walter and Koyo's sister, whose name escapes me at the minute, but they all work together to grow girls rugby in Uganda. And so they started this organization called Rugby Tackling Life. And so first of all, women's rugby in Uganda would not happen without Koyo Helen. She, when other people say that rugby for girls isn't worth investing in and it's a useless investment and that doesn't matter, Koyo says, forget you, like they do matter and it is worth investing in and people do care about it. And so, so she is organized, over the years, like, practically single-handedly, like organized opportunities for girls to play rugby. And so she coaches and she trains the women's national team, but she also, coaches girls all over Uganda and puts on clinics all over Uganda so that as many girls as possible can have the opportunity to play rugby and experience the life-changing effect that rugby has on their lives. And so, and when I worked for Gainline Africa, those programs weren't just for boys; they were for girls as well. And so we worked in girls' high schools and co-ed high schools. And so, so girls all over Uganda get to be exposed to rugby. But it's difficult because Koyo lives in central Uganda and she can't be everywhere at once. And she has people who coach in other regions. But so Rugby Tackling Life is this nonprofit. It's a nonprofit in Uganda, and what they do is it got started so that they could use rugby as a tool to empower young women throughout Uganda. And so girls who are told that, so oftentimes, you have to pay to go to school and not just college, but like all school. And so oftentimes families don't have the money to put all of their kids in school, so the boys get to go to school and the girls don't. And so a lot of girls they unfortunately miss out on an education. And even if they do get to go to school, basically the message that they get is you are to find a rich husband who is wealthy and can take care of you and provide for you and make children and be a homemaker, and that's your lot in life. And so Koyo teaches these girls through rugby that they are powerful and they are independent and they are strong and they are unique and that they can do anything they want with their lives. And she uses rugby as a tool to teach these girls that and to empower them. And but not only, to empower them to be leaders in their own lives, but to be leaders in their communities and be a positive impact on their own communities and to lead other girls and empower other young girls as well. And so so what they do is, she tries to run programs all over Uganda. And so for these girls to get exposed to playing rugby. And so what we're trying to do is, so right now they have a for-profit branch of it called Coffee. It's COOFFEE. And they make and they sell coffee in Uganda. They make it in Uganda. You can sell it everywhere in the world and you buy it, and then the proceeds from that goes towards funding Rugby Tackling Life. And so when they have enough money, they'll provide scholarships for girls who want to go to school or who want to learn a vocation. Maybe they finished high school but they want to, right now they're providing an opportunity, a scholarship for a girl to she's apprenticing as a tailor and she wants to open her own shop as a seamstress and a tailor. And so so she's really doing incredible things, but there's only so much she can do and she needs more help and she needs, more opportunities to train other coaches in other regions and to run clinics in other regions and provide equitable opportunities for our girls to play and participate and to grow the women's national team so that they can compete at a higher level. And I mean, they're already competing at a high level. They just got back from Dubai Sevens. And so what I'm doing is I'm working with Koyo and Kate and An, who are, all on the board of Rugby Tackling Life. And I'm working particularly with Kate to establish, because Kate also lives in the US, to establish RTL as a nonprofit in the United States, so that we can continue doing some fundraising efforts here and raising money. And what we would like in the long run, our vision is that we can have an actual physical rugby academy where girls all over Uganda can come and they can go to school there and they can play rugby and develop life skills and rugby skills and have an equal opportunity for all girls in Uganda to be able to do that. And so right now, the short-term version, we're on a traveling academy so that she'll have clinics in regions all over Uganda, but we need funding for that. And Koyo has to work separately from all of this to sustain herself and to make a living for herself. And so we need to raise funds to pay Koyo and to hopefully eventually train and pay other coaches and to continue growing this, because without her, these girls won't really have an opportunity to play. And if the boys can play, why can't the girls? And so proving others that they are a worthwhile investment. So yeah, it's the current project that I'm super stoked about. And so for all of you out there, keep your eyes and ears open for Rugby Tackling Life. And we're going to work on putting together videos and interviews so that people can get an idea of what life is like for these girls and how rugby has changed their lives and the lives of the people around them and the opportunities it has provided for them. And so we'll put out stories and videos and pictures so that people can really see the power of it, and if you feel compelled, want to donate to it, or even buy coffee.
I was just checking those out online as we were discussing this, and obviously we put links for every show in there, but Rugby Tackling Life is on Instagram, and straight away it's an amazing, empowering account just to check that out. So we'll get the links into the show notes so people can check that out and get behind you and
sweet
and do all those things. I'm not usually at a loss for words, but I think this was one of the coolest shows I've done so far or will do. And
thank you.
Is there anything else you're looking forward to? Is world peace coming around the corner, my friend?
Hopefully via rugby. Yes.
Yes. No.
No, there's so much going on, and I've shared a lot, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to share, because my hope is that other people who listen will be inspired to do something too, and to get involved where they can, and whether that's even just being a volunteer for your local youth club. I love coaching, and I love being an administrator for a league, because it gives me the opportunity to provide as much opportunity as possible for kids in our region to play, because obviously I want everyone to play, but also I also coach, and there's nothing in the world that can replace coaching and replace the direct impact that a coach has on a kid's life. And so I would encourage everyone out there, get involved at some level, whether it's a team administrator or coaching or refereeing or, donating to or working with Rugby Tackling Life or any other, rugby organization out there. Get involved somehow. And even the smallest, even if you think it's a small impact, it's not. Every small impact added together is a massive impact.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story today. This is exactly what I was hoping people would hear from friends and colleagues of mine about, the great things that they can get involved with in the world and in the rugby world specifically, obviously. But it's much bigger than your club, your school, your town, your state. It's a sport that connects all of us. And again, thank you, my friend, for coming on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Everyone always says, there was so much more I could say after we sit down snacks. I would love to do a part 2 and talk more about Uganda and Africa at some point. So keep that in the back of your mind.
I will.
And I will see you soon at an event or something.
Yes.
Not to give too much away. And with that, I think we'll sign off. You got any
All
last
right.
minute shout outs you'd like to say or anything?
No. I love you, Mom and Dad.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. Well,
Thanks for
thanks,
having me,
Christina.
Sam. No
No,
problem.
anytime. I'm going to stop the recording now.
All right. Bye.